A politician in TNT, cause calypso money. There will no palace for me. I want a palace just like yours, with about 300 doors. Calypso can give me that. I'm telling you flat, flat, flat. One fish for 20,000. I want about 10 dozen. Diplomatic center too. I dream to keep fit like you. But could we start building soon? Yes. Could we start in the month of June? Yes. Did you take land from the poor? Yes. Will they still vote you for sure? Yes. Oh no.
1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 1 billion,
Who said?
2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion.
Did you spend money to the ground?
Yes.
I hear the master bedroom alone, Patrick will blow me away. The figures they make known, look, I don't know what to say. They say the dining area for sure cost about 6 million. The executive suite and more is a money squandalization. So much people in poverty, some have nowhere to sleep nightly. Still you find time to build a palace. Well, I want you build one for me. I want a palace just like yours, with about 300 doors. Calypso can give me that. I'm telling you flat, flat, flat. 3 million for trips alone. How much loan? How much the contractors make? I want to spend.
Yes.
Oh, the transparency to the end.
Yes.
Did you put a burden on the treasury?
Yes.
Was it a waste of taxpayers' money?
Yes.
Oh no, oh no,
1 million,
oh
2 million, 3 million, 4 million,
Latvia,
1 billion,
who said?
2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion.
Do you see about the people needs?
Yes.
Do you think he's a man of greed?
Yes.
Listen, you tell me to tighten we belt, but you're slack forevermore. You go on and you build your palace without no regards for the poor. Hospitals deteriorating, no beds to see about the sick. Police and fire stations collapsing, still you go on and build it quick. If it's palace you love so much and it makes you feel alright, should they put me out the apartment and sleep in my you tonight? I want a palace just like yours, with about 300 doors. Yes, I want it in full view, like you I could show off too. I deserve it, that I know, for all these years of calypso. All patriots die begging, while you living like a king. Do you think God will forgive you?
Yes.
Do you know that he loves you too?
Yes.
Would you change from your selfish ways?
Yes.
Will you give to God his praise?
Yes.
Do you have an altar inside of here?
Yes.
You take Holy Communion?
Yes.
Did you get rid of the Obia woman?
In a palace.
In Trinidad a few months ago, with the Prime Minister of Trinidad, he walks into the room with this woman. I take her with me everywhere, he said. God speaks to her. In fact, he said, God speaks to me through her. She's been a great blessing to my government. I'm thinking, you foolish man.
Why, Patrick? People say every day that and more would be before.
Yes, that sounds right to me. That should be the constitution.
Yes, indeed, of course. This is, of course, the Saturday edition of the Corridor Transformation. I want to apologize profusely, simply because just outside, yes, just outside from where we are, as far as studio is concerned, well, the Pantry Bago is having, of course, it's I believe, the finals of the pan round the neck and small bands category at Victoria Square. So we are just opposite, or should I say, in line of fire. And of course, even if you have the credentials to be here, having regard, of course, to the fact that you are coming to do your chores and your duties, the authorities would like to get confirmation. So we had, of course, I had to, of course, generate the confirmationary, should I say, certification by, of course, those who are in charge of the building. And so, of course, thus our late arrival here at the studio in order, of course, to carry on the business of the country, because when that is said and done, when the bands would have crossed the stage, and when, of course, that exercise would have been completed, and ultimately when Ash Wednesday would have come, the reality of Trinidad and Tobago remains. So, of course, for the next, it appears that we have, half an hour again. We are going to, of course, still do what we have to do, because it is now 9:30, and I have no difficulty, of course, in utilizing that period in order, of course, to deal with the people's business at the end of the day. So, that being as it may, we will continue, of course, to treat with the issues of the day, irregardless of the circumstances, the impediments, and, of course, the hambugs. Because, of course, we know it will be a hot 2024. And we must spare no opportunity. We must spare no opportunity to, of course, exhibit, expand, expound, and deliberately focus on the fact that our democracy is under threat in spite of the cultural expressions with which we have grown accustomed and has become part of the culture. And we would, of course, revere over time, and that we will be very, very disappointed if Carnival didn't take place. But in the midst of that, we must, of course, address our burning problems. Let's go straight, of course, to the lines one time. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. This late edition, welcome to the corridor. This late Saturday edition.
Good night.
Good night to you. Good night.
A pleasant good night to you, Lennox. And to everybody on the chat. Lennox, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear, loud and clear, loud and clear.
Right, right. I have to make it. I have to know that you're hearing me for something I have to say here tonight. Lennox, I waited patiently on you here tonight. I want to express my disgust as to what took place on Thursday night.
Okay.
That should never happen. Never. And, Lennox, I want to say to Miss Valstein, never, never let anybody bring you down to that standard. Lift your head high. And Lennox, it was last week when you had to upgrade to the Puna for some racist remarks that he was making. And Lennox, let me tell you something. Your show has been building, but because of some racist remarks, and I'm going to be very open here tonight, it is pulling back. People are very, very disappointed. People call me. You see that green bag statement? It went over the top. People didn't appreciate that because according to what somebody told me, when we give in charity, when the greasy bag people give in charity, they don't look at who getting it, Lennox. Whether we have plenty or we have a little, we give it wholeheartedly. And that statement was disgusting and vile. And it has been building. It is a trend that has been building. Always pointed fingers at Indians. I have a recording and I send it for you. where that same person got an Aisha program. Talk about the yellow belly coolies. Sorry to use that word. And in Lennox, I am appealing to you to put a stop to that nonsense. You don't want your show to go down that road. This is our program. And not because Telecommunications Authority don't look at it, right? That we will allow it to get into disrepute. We have to hold our heads higher. You bringing issues every night. You sounding your soul is out. Bringing issues. So what is Rowley and them doing? Making people aware. And people going on that race road is distasteful. They're trying to turn the wrong report. And they want to bring it down. And I don't care who vexes you, Lennox. I don't care who vexes with me. Because as I say, I don't have to pay them to breed. Or their heaven is not going through their yard. Not going through their yard to heaven. But I am telling you, Lennox, it was not nice. And a lot of people were calling me, right? And talking about what it is went on. And as they rightly said, when we give in charity, we don't look at who we give in. We give in everybody. We don't discriminate. So why must we be discriminated so against people? And let me tell you something, Lennox. They want to talk about the ethnicity of the people who want to pay property tax. Well, watch me good. Because when my own come, I'm going to pay it. Because I don't want to lose my home. And I ain't no coward. I work hard for it, Lennox. After my husband died, nobody did know if I was making stone soup to pay off the mortgage. You hear? And Lennox, I'm appealing to you. And I'm saying this on behalf of a lot of your chatters and people that help you. Right? That was not nice. That was very distasteful, and don't allow it to spoil your program. Thanks a lot again, Lennox, and have a good night.
Yes, indeed. Well, let me respond upfront and pragmatic and what I consider to be bold, as you have been emboldeningly expressed. You have emboldeningly expressed, of course, your concern and concerns with others, because I too, because of course, there are better ways to express one's, even if it is nestled in emotions. I insist that there must not be personality attacks, and there must not be what I consider to be bigotry outburst. What do I mean by bigotry outburst? Well, bigotry outburst is exemplified by what Rowley did to the Baptist community when he put on a Riddler suit like if he is a Batman and raise a hymn, somebody touch him. I say somebody slap him. And slap him from the grave. And I am saying that that person is manning. Because you would have made a mockery of the Baptist community. And the same way that I have taken it to the level of the Prime Minister, who has a duty and responsibility not only to acknowledge, accept, and display a kind of objectivity that will show that he is not biased one way or another, but to try, of course, to belittle and to degrade and to erode the significance of a particular denominational group in Trinidad and Tobago that has struggled, that has demonstrated that it is worth its salt, that was banned, that was decried, that was subjected to legislative, not just bigotry, but legislative emasculation. And so, when you say around of course, Diwali time, and you talk about greasy bag, that too is disrespectful and bigotry. And I agree. Because as a practicing Baptist, when they tell us to come around the gift table, when they tell us to break bread and rejoice, when of course bags are filled with the offerings on the table, whether it be fruits, cake, etc., you are making a mockery of my religion. So I want to agree with you 100%. I will continue after this call. A pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yeah. Earlier on today, Lennox has sent a clip with TT and Heavy.
Yes.
I'd like you to play it.
Oh, yes. That's a clip.
Yeah.
When, of course, he said that people are hypocritical and are disrespectful and so on. Yes. I will do that tomorrow because I don't have time tonight. But we will do it tomorrow morning with Dr. Khalid. And then I'll do it tomorrow night as well. All right? Rest assured. Yes, I have taken note. All right?
Okay.
Yes, no problem. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
As people, I understand what it is to be disrespectful to one's religious preference in a melting pot scenario where we have pride and dignity in our cosmopolitan evolution and development, and to suggest that somehow you can degrade and deride and of course render not just horrendous, not just laughable or ludicrous, not just ought not to be in existence, not just demonstrating that there is some kind of superlative position that you would take over another religion. I say that the way to salvation may have different roads, but at the end of the day, it is one objective, and that is our respective salvation as the soul of the individual whilst living hopefully is destined for, irregardless of the road that they would have taken. So yes, I agree, and I cannot overemphasize that on this program, the countenance or the tolerance or the patience with such individuals would not be tolerated, and patience will be exhausted with immediacy. So if you wish to, of course, contribute, you must find a position of objectivity. You must find a position of consensus building. You must find preferably a position of unanimity. And there are many instances, examples that one can find. For example, it is unanimous that Rowley and his minions are, of course, the death knell, the toxic political manifestation of Trinidad and Tobago. You would agree that the PNM and Rowley administration is, of course, the existential threat to our democracy. You would agree that based on the pellucid, the palpable, the tactile, and the evident intent and conduct to undermine our democratic processes, manifested in their interference and subverting of the electoral process. You would agree as well that a similar attitude is exhibited as far as the division, or put another way, the acceptance of the various unique and, of course, separate, but nonetheless accepted for the purposes of checks and balances, are talking about the separation of powers, are talking about the existence of the executive in one context, and of course the legislative in another context, and of course the judiciary in another context, and of course the what? The media, yes, in another context. And all of them together is supposed, of course, to try and, of course, develop a reasonable and prosperous and, of course, functional democracy. It cannot be that the executive run by Rowley and his cabinet ministers believe that they could be above the law. The rule of law is a fundamental principle of our democratic development and principles. And for anybody to interfere with that in the way that Rowley and they have, it is clear that they are the existential threat to our democracy, and therefore have weaponized the executive or the government against the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And if we allow them to get, of course, an additional 1,000 police officers, then it is clear that, as according to former Commissioner of Police, we will have, of course, a police state, not in the making, but in reality. Let's go straight to the lines once again, as we would continue to give you the preference to express yourself. President, good night. Welcome to the corridor. Welcome to the corridor.
Hello, good night, Lennox.
Good night to you.
Are you hearing me clearly, Lennox?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Are you hearing me clearly?
Loud and clear, yes.
I hope we ain't getting any feedback with my television here.
No. Loud and clear.
All right.
Clear.
Lennox, you go how you're going. Concentrate on what you're talking about. Yesterday was yesterday and today is today. Right? But what I want to say is, we black people that be getting blows on the ground report and right through, and when we open we mouth, is a problem. And why Miss Santa Cruz, they let somebody else say something? She don't get nobody a chance to say nothing, right? And I want the dark ones to watch what's going on, right? Anytime anybody mash my corn, I will mash your back harder. Stay away from me. Tell the person from Santa with her saying, right, to know how to talk to me. She lose it with me. She following other people. Don't follow other people, because what I don't do them, I will do back to you with my mouth. You understand? Mind your business and stay out of things what I saying. Others that stay out, try and don't follow. It's as simple as that, and I won't have anything to tell you. Because every time I get away, people that say, Miss Arima, Miss Arima, Miss Arima. Well, don't attack me. I don't attack anybody. Everybody know that. I don't say anything about people comments. I do not attack and bully anybody. So leave me alone, please. Thank you, Lennox. Have a
Yes, indeed. But on the last occasion, why I allowed, of course, a sort of technical tit for tat is because of the fact that the focus by your presentation was that of Indians, of course, employing Venezuelans. I cannot forget that. That's a fact, and therefore I allowed it. But I will, of course, but at the end of it all, I issued, or you issued, or reciprocally issued a challenge to each other. And that is where I want to go tonight as well. You see, because you will have to tell me who are the people that are, of course, engaged in, of course, the rum shops and the bars, and those persons who are engaged in, of course. Let's go to the lines before, of course, I continue. A pleasant good night.
Good night to everybody in life. I'm Mr.
Good night.
Smith.
Good night.
Mr. Smith, first summer, actually, a person in Sri Lanka, I wanted to call, I couldn't call. I would like these big ladies, these old ladies that I respect very much, to stop being tit for tat and the nonsense that is going on this program. This program is not for that. If you all have problems, get each other's phone and call. Please don't do that. You're making the program, you'll be listening to the program, little children listening to this, people from foreign all over listening to this, so I can't go to no other platform and do this. Please do not do this on this platform. Right? I'm my own person listening. If I can't, I wouldn't want to listen to big people getting on like little children. Please stop it. We have children are going to the school to listen on. And only not setting no example for them. When only getting on like that, so they don't set any example for anybody. Do not do that. Right? You can't go on the ground report. You can't go nowhere. Do not do it. And if it's like that, it's best, you know, they start with a nonsense, just lock all you off, come back again, but don't come back, please. I have people who listen, people calling on my phone. What is going on with these big people? Please stop it. Right? With due respect. Have a pleasant night.
Thank you very much. And the lesson, the moral of that story is very simple. I have said then, and I'm saying now, do not engage in personality clashes. That will not help the cause to move forward, because the common objective is that the PNM is toxic, Rowley, of course, is despicable, and that they have weaponized government against the people. So, if there are issues that will either advance or take away or promote or deride or in any way able to advance the cause to the reality that is Trinidad and Tobago, fine. I detest anybody who will, of course, engage in personality attacks. Make your point. Make your point. Make your point. And if someone disagrees, they must not, for example, say that that person is stupid or smart, as the case may be. Make your point. I will be there, of course, to give credence and to give opportunity for a counter or consensus view or an approbation view. Let's go straight to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Pleasant good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you.
You hear me? You're right. I want to say good night to everybody in live, everybody in chat, everybody regionally, internationally. People, Mr. Lennox show is of educational purposes. Is educating us about the wrongdoings of the PLM and all the strong points of the UNC, and this is the way we're trying to spread. Ms. Santa Cruz, Ms. Arima, and Ms. Valsine. I feel very proud of three of you guys because you guys are educated. You guys make great contributions. You guys know all the history or the know world views. And I feel proud to know that I have elders that's so educated, but sometimes we let personality get in the way and talk. But let me show the world how educated our senior citizens are in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me stop this talk, this fighting talk, and let me just deal with education. Because Mr. Smith's show, Mr. Lennox show is one of educational purposes. People all over the diaspora just look at it to find out what exactly is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. So please, you guys, Ms. Santa Cruz, Ms. Arima, Ms. Valentine, you guys are very educated, well spoken. Come on, let me show the world. Let me forget about this fighting. Have a good night, Mr. Lennox, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, of course, for that intervention. Once again, in his own inimitable way, but of course, interpreting the fact that you can have a position, but if someone has a different position, you cannot call them a fool or that they're talking nonsense, etc. No. I want to show you how technical this entire thing is. Because I have been saying that Rowley or Imbert or anybody in the government who I believe is not in sync with reality, I will call them an ass. I will call Rowley a rapist and a pedophile. But the big difference here is that they are in public life and they are affecting me as they are affecting you and as they are affecting all of the, whether diaspora or the nationals or the region based on the policies or the hemisphere or the international opportunity that they would have, of course, to address issues that may have connotations, or put another way, international matters that may have connotations in Trinidad and vice versa. But the fact of the matter is that they are public officers. But a private person having no such credentials, why the recriminations? No. What you do, you place your point on record. This is on record what your point is. And if someone disagrees, you simply say that I disagree with the previous caller or with the former caller. Or you can even say I disagree with Ms. Santa Cruz. But it must be done in a manner that is professional, that is acceptable, and that everyone will understand that it is a difference of view. But to go further and to say that you are a fool, as how I would tell Rowley and his ministers. No. Because it does not bring value. Because none of you or none of us have any influence on the outcome of what is happening, or indeed, while we may be swaying public opinion, etc., whether Rowley and they take the advice or not, it is a matter for them. And therefore, in such circumstances, let me repeat, therefore, in such circumstances, because they were elected by the population to, of course, engage in a social contract or call an election and the result thereof, And as a consequence of our constitutional arrangement and the electoral process, they have found themselves in government and prime minister, as well as opposition leader. We have a duty and responsibility to hold them accountable. And therefore, if they're talking hogwash, nothing wrong with that as far as I am concerned. I will defend to the hilt your right, because they are determining the quality of the air you breathe. They are determining the quality, the quantum, as well as the cost of the food that you consume. That the nature and the, of course, cost as well of the clothing that you wear. And of course, the quality and the nature, as well as the, should I say, status of the home that you reside in. Because as human beings, the job of the elected representatives, Rowley and they, in this case, even though the opposition is also elected, but because they are the ones that control the ways and means, in other words, the treasury of the country, they must be held accountable. And if they are doing nonsense, you say, Rowley, you are doing nonsense. You say, Imbert, you are doing nonsense. You say, of course, Young, you're doing nonsense. You say, of course, Penelope Beckers, you are doing nonsense. You say, Regis, you are doing nonsense. You say, of course, Heinz, you are doing nonsense. And it will be fair, because what they are doing is impacting your quality of life, standard of living, and of course, determining, frankly, whether you become more pauperized or head towards pauperization, or you are uplifted and moving towards, of course, a better quality of life and standard of living. Big difference. But for us to, of course, have a dialogue that is cross-purpose and that deflects away from who we should be targeting, we are doing ourselves an injustice. We are not living to the standard that is required. We have lost our purpose. It cannot be individual attacks who themselves are subjected to the policies and programs of those who we have elected and have breached, of course, the social contract entered into by way of an electoral process. I trust that I'm being very clear. Pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Pleasant good night to you, Lennox Smith.
Yes, my friend.
Pleasant good night to you, Lennox Smith. You hear me loud and clear?
Yes, loud and clear, my friend.
Yeah, I realize there are a little cat fight on the program there.
Yeah, so I'm trying to resolve that as a good objective referee will do, as a good, should I say, empire will do, as a good, of course, a person who, of course, is engaged in possibly reconciliation would do. Go ahead, my friend.
Right, so if it's one thing I just tell people, despite what is happening, as one individual, like to say focus. So check this out. They mentioned that the policies that the PNM putting in place, it affecting the average man in terms of the quality of living standard in this country. Now yesterday, like any other day, I just worked my little PH in the Point Fortet area by the hospital and around the town.
Yes.
And ever so often when I go by the hospital and people were coming out, I go ask them if they go in point or wherever. But yesterday evening, it had two Indian couples. They walk out the hospital. So I asked them if they go in point. They said, no, they go in Sandro. They waiting on the bus. And I making my rounds ever so often, and I notice.
Right.
So when I get a chance, probably about an hour and a half, close to 2 hours, I went to them. I say, family, I say, yeah, what going on? I say, when the bus go Sandro, they say, yeah. I say, the bus service not so reliable in the point 40 area. So I want to take a maxi to go Sandro. They tell me it's really open to go in. And the lady tell me, she said, well, uncle, I need to help me to alert $20 for us to travel to home. So we have no money. So I have no money, they say now. I say, I know sin. I take out $20 and I get them. I say, I know how long I got to wait on a maxi, but I don't go quick I get a maxi to go up you. I go on one point, I come back again, I realize I see this start up, they maxi them taking long to work. I say, here what going on? Because watching the condition of these two people, look like the husband, like something they wrong with him because he had a plaster in his hand and he seen blood and thing penetrating through the plaster and the place getting dark. And I say, but these people and them here looking vulnerable, I go discipline to go in local. So I say, here what going on? I say, I'll give you like extra $20, I'll carry all the interpoint. I want to take a taxi and tell the taxi we all want to go. Take a San Francisco taxi and tell them we all want to go inside Old Push. And I say, Lennox, God called me to help these people, and because when I was in Canada, I ended up getting a little shot in a bus stop. And it's an Indian woman that helped me in Canada for me to get a bus ticket for me to go with it I was to go. Because I didn't know where I was to go to get a bus ticket at the time. And it's an Indian lady that I meet at a bus stop in Canada, and she helped me to a bus ticket for me to go home. So I just tell people, I is one person cannot be racial because death make all of us equal. Death. Nobody is perfect. So yesterday I saw these two people and them in a position there, and I said, but I had to have discipline them. Because the place getting dark and then elements just come out in the night time, I want discipline them to go home safely. So I give them passage money for them also go home in the place because they say they have no money. And it hurt me to see that this country has so much resources and yet the people see in trouble. And I tell people, my focus is this PNM government have to go in a dungeon 100 miles below the earth and to stay there until they rot. Doctor, listening.
Yes, indeed. And these are the issues that we must be focused on. And whether or not we can help our brothers and sisters who may be in danger in spite of the challenges, and the fact that you have the option to help or not to help, but as the favorite or very well-known village council theme, if I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not be in vain. But it is an extension, of course, of being our brother's keeper. But on the last occasion, and of course, it was initiated by, of course, Ms. Arima as to whether or not you will find, of course, the Venezuelan migrants living in certain quarters as opposed to other quarters. Or put another way, an inclusive or engage in as of course employees of businesses, and we had a little, of course, difference in opinion. Well, I want to say that I have not, of course, moved from my own position, because while, of course, I accept that there are businesses who see an opportunity because of one reason or another, and with a high degree of specificity in terms of the fact that you don't have to pay NIS for any one of them. Whether you are Chinese, Syrian, I comment general first, Chinese, Syrian, Indian, African, and you have a cadre of persons at your disposal, or who you may have to pay or may not, or you could afford to flaunt the minimum wage. Very important. But there is a legal requirement that you do not have to pay NIS for those persons. You making joke. As a business person, I'm talking off the cuff. I'm talking as a business person. Obviously, I am going to choose those persons to work in my business. I am going to choose these people to work in my business. But the argument was that there's a certain cadre of business persons alone who it's suggesting in the majority that are employing these persons. Well, let us get that right one time. The fact of the matter is that something like 49, or should I say 49% of our population are Indians. About 51, if not the reverse these days, is that of course, Africans. And of course, that would not consume, of course, the total 100%, because, of course, we also have in that mix, even though I've already completed 100%, but, of course, in that mix, you have Chinese, you have Syrians, you have, of course, other business persons, but they are so minuscule that we do not focus on them, and they are almost invincible as business, unless and until when, of course, businesses are robbed, like Chinese are attacked in recent times, and then, of course, it comes to the fore. But more often than not, we go to these businesses and we patronize. We see it is Chinese owned. We see that they are other ethnic group other than Indians or African owned. But let us focus on the Indian and African community as far as businesses are concerned. If we have to accept that as Rowley has said on our Emancipation Day, that he is disappointed with the African community because they have not been able to excel or, of course, compete with the other groups. But those other groups will have to be essentially Indians as well. Let's not waste time with that. Other groups cannot be Syrian and Chinese alone. The fact of the matter is that they said that we are on the bottom. I'm saying all of that to say that the reality is that there is a propensity by Indians to develop and establish businesses as opposed to the tendency of the African community. And that is a fact. And let me tell you this, that if it was the reverse, if the Africans were more business-oriented than the Indians, it is logical to conclude that given the opportunity of over 100,000 immigrants, whether they be from Cuba, whether they be from Venezuela, whether they be from Colombia, it doesn't matter. But the fact is that you as a business person, and having regard to the fact that they don't have to pay NIS, which of course, when that is normal, you will have to pay part of it in order for them to, of course, complete the process of satisfying the NIS regulations or rules or law. Then it is clear that the African, if they were in the majority and business-oriented, that they would want these people to be in their businesses. It's common sense. So I am not going to argue whether or not, in essence, whether the Indians, because they are business-oriented and having these immigrants employed in their businesses, is natural. Just as how it is natural for the Chinese to do, and any other group that have businesses to employ these people. But of course, because the issue was raised on the last occasion. And that is to say, places like Carib, places like, and let's go further, places like Solo, places like, of course, Coca-Cola or Cannons, places like coconut growers, places where citrus growers doesn't exist again, but places like, let's say, West Indian tobacco. It's obvious that they cannot, whether they like it or not, and it is tempting to bring in these people as employees, but because they have and have been tied to industrial relations scenario where the representative trade unions will have none of that nonsense. Understand that? That is why they have not found, you will not find the plethora or a large number of these immigrants working there, but it's not that the business owners and the conglomerates and those, of course, those directors and the managers are not, of course, enticingly tempted, and of course will love to have them work for them because, of course, they don't have to study NIS and other benefits that they will have to give to these employees, these potential, but they can't. Because they are tying to an industrial relations regime and, of course, contracts that they have with, of course, the representative trade unions of these various workers that are employed, whether or not it is, of course, Carib, whether it is, of course, West Indian tobacco, whether it is Cannons, whether it is Solo, etc. Those established private businesses. For example, they can't go in no bank and work. They cannot even go in the public sector and work. Except, of course, indirectly where, of course, for example, a private person have, of course, a collection contract with, let's say, the Ministry of Community Development, and they have to collect rubbish, garbage on a daily basis or whenever, based on the contract. Then those private persons can now, of course, employ these immigrants and benefit, of course, from the non-payment of NIS. You see where I'm coming from? And therefore benefit and employ them. But don't tell me that across the board that is so. No. It will be, of course, a poor analysis of the situation. Now, having said that, it means, therefore, that businesses that is a one-man show, a business that is a small business or a micro business or an entrepreneur with a family business, etc., and let me identify the businesses, whether it be, of course, selling Tulum, whether you're selling doubles, whether you're selling, I have seen Indigo Martin and so on, immigrants selling doubles, and they're so bright, they start to make their own and engage in their own businesses and so on, but they must have learned from somewhere. But it is from these micro businesses that will be encouraged and will gravitate and will be enticed by the advantage that they have of not having to one, pay any kind of national insurance, one, and two, they could afford to exploit them in terms of paying them less. That's the only place. And therefore, if we have 100,000 of them here, then where would they be? That's the next question. Well, they will find themselves in businesses that find it very enticing, not in the cloth stores and so on, in the Syrian stores and all of that, where they would have had years of employee engagement and would have had some level of labor representation. Yeah, you have that. Don't believe that those workers who are working on a daily paid in the regional corporations, they have their representatives. But some of those very cloth stores that you see around, some of these labor representatives or labor organization represent those cloth workers, you know. Understand that and make it worse. If it is that they feel that they are being exploited, I talk about the ordinary people, not the immigrants, the Ministry of Labor has a mechanism to trigger and to make certain that they get their just due. Yes, the Ministry of Labor has that mechanism there. They are there for that. They are investigators and there are other, of course, components within the framework of the Ministry of Labor in order, of course, to generate justification, particularly when the government says that, listen, that the hourly paid workers are supposed to get $20.50. The ordinary ID card Trinbagonian can go to the labor ministry and get their just due. However, it will be, of course, because of the human reality that these immigrants would hardly go there because they already are getting a benefit of not having to contribute out of what they are getting to NIS. And of course, the employer, on the other hand, the businessman who employed them, is saying, well, boy, I don't have to contribute anything. So it is a more exploitative situation for them. So I don't want anybody, of course, to be one-sided or lopsided in terms of their analysis. Where would you find them? You will find them, therefore, in the pubs. Every single pub along the east-west corridor, you start from Carenage in the west, and you will see them. You will see them, of course, in those casinos. You will see them in those small Chinese and along the east-west corridor and wherever. You will see them at entertainment centers, whether it be hotels, etc. You see, because you have to understand that they have to live. And you do not see them on a regular basis on the street, except when you see them with a high degree of concern as to how so much of them are here, but they must eat. How do you think they're eating? And of course, you have, of course, the human exploitation and sex trade. They are all over. And I want to tell you, finally, in construction all over the damn country, you have them, of course, there, especially the male. Especially the male. Every construction site you see is 100 and something thousand of them. You can't tell me that one group of people could hide them in their homes and make them maids and so on and say that, and you conclude that no, you have to be able to be analytical and your evidence must be, of course, as solid as a rock, and you must not be able, of course, to in any way be questioned or the validity of your analysis must, of course, withstand question. Must be able to withstand question. So it is wrong to identify one group without the proper analysis. That's all I'm saying. If it is that the Indians are more business oriented, which we know, and I told you what Rowley said about Africans, it's obvious that based on the policy of the government to, of course, not implement or give them the opportunity to pay national insurance, that they will be subjected, of course, to the attraction of businesses that relish the idea that they don't have to pay that and that therefore will displace and will, of course, prevent or would generate the avoidance of locals who have and can insist on the 20, 50 an hour. And if they don't get it, they go to the Ministry of Labor. Those immigrants can't do it. Not that they can't, let me put it that way, but they will not do it. Otherwise, they will starve one and have to take a quick exit from Trinidad. That is the reality. That is how it is. And so, of course, I want to make certain that we understand and we do an analysis that could withstand scrutiny. Professor, good night. Welcome to the corridor. Professor, good night.
Lennox,
Welcome.
I listen to you.
Good.
I listen to you. And let us make a long story short.
Go ahead.
On the part with the NIS, right?
Yes.
That they don't have to pay because it's Rowley who made that policy.
That's right. That's right.
What it is happening to us? And we have to wait until we're 65 because they don't have contributions being paid. This is why it have a problem. Also, on the part with the jobs, you're saying they're everywhere, right? Look at the problem it creates with the black people. Everybody's seeing how black people killing, robbing, they're shooting. Look at the problem that it creates. So it was, or I should say, it is being encouraged. It's okay. They go for that. The same thing with the vaccines, right? I know nobody can tell me it's day when it's night. People see who was going in the line for them vaccines. And I am one of the persons who went and protest around the savannah, and you know that, right? I want to say something here tonight.
Go ahead.
I'm more talking on the property tax too, right? If we to make a stance like how we make a strong stance for the vaccine and people make a strong stance, all that Rowley and they will not be able to get through it. We have to make a stand. This is where this whole thing come from. But these people don't make a stance. And I could tell you, I live on a street here. It's a residential area with large houses. And these people who live here, the majority of us are Negroes. And let me tell you, them same kind of people we talking about, the sparse. We have place and we have to rent. I have, and I'm not renting. You don't encourage something. Let me tell you something. Other countries in this region don't want these people in the place. This little island here encouraging them, and we all know who encouraging them. Look who they does be with. I tell you, I doing business. I could talk the language. And when they see and hear I could talk the language, they just talk to me. And most of them that I talk with, they are being paid fair. Fair. They just pay them fair. They don't get no exploit. That is all talk. You hear? Few will complain, and they have rights to complain to the authorities for that. Rowley give them all them rights. You hear? And they have who does complain. But these people just get paid fair and square. They don't get no exploit. They just get bonus. I meet one, he tell me he does chop mango. And he does get paid 200 a day. And when he do more work, he does get paid, more pay. Right? And that is how it's supposed to be. But again, the black people ain't getting the jobs. And look what's happening. And if it was in the reverse, as you said, if it had black people, had businesses like the Indian people, because we are the majority inside of here. Forget the Chinese, forget the Syrians. I don't think black people would encourage that because it has consequences. And look at the consequences. Kamala can't heal everything. It's too much. So all who dreaming that when she come in power, or if she come in power, that all this will get healed up, I ain't think so. Because them same people that are the majority and encouraging this, they will continue to be robbed, killed, and raped. Right? And they can't be saying Trinidadians lazy. And when they tongue ready, they're saying black people lazy. Right? And when they're ready and they feel the pain, want us to march, protest, put a voice for them after they abuse us like this. It can't work with me. I don't know for the rest, but it ain't working with me. No, sir.
I hear you, but I also sense a heap of contradictions because you started by accepting that the early premise that I made, which is that Africans are not business oriented and therefore those who are business oriented will take advantage. But to say without, of course, an iota of understanding human nature, that Africans, if they were in the majority and business oriented, that they would take advantage of that. Come on now, you can't be real. If you're a businessman, you are a businessman. If you are a businessman, you are a businessman. So please, that is ad hominem. That is your interpretation. It doesn't operate so in the real world. In the real world, that is one part. But you raise a very good point, and that is, of course, the question of property tax. Well, I want to tell you to start with that the property tax, as well as the exchange of $100 bills, polymer for cotton notes and vice versa. No, not vice versa, but polymer for cotton was targeted at those who own the businesses, the majority. And it was not, again, the African community. It was the Indian community. That policy was designed to, of course, attack. Because they're the ones. And I want to say as well that property tax was also designed to attack the Indian community as well. You cannot tell me that if they are in the majority and if they are the ones who have the most to lose, that is separate and apart from your nationalistic obligation and the fact that all of us have to come together because we are in this, what I consider to be whirlpool. This, of course, this mortar, that all of us will be depressed at the end of the day. But the fact of the matter is that they are the ones with the most to lose. You cannot impose on them and tell me, for example, that I must be nationalistic and so on when I have the most to lose. But that being as it may, let's accept that. Because what you are referring to is really and truly an equitable responsibility. What I consider to be everybody play their part earnestly and honestly. But I want to draw your attention to something. Let us look at pushback 1, pushback 2, pushback 3, pushback 4, pushback 5. And you were there. You tell me, who in the majority were part and parcel of that 5,000 that was there first? I think the pushback 2 was, I think, 9,000. And then, of course, we had, of course, a reduction in pushback 3, pushback 4, pushback 5. You tell me, be honest. It is the Indian community that was that had, I wouldn't say an over preponderance, but you could clearly say they were in the majority. Let us not waste time. And don't tell me now that I'm guessing now because I is part of the organizing committee. So don't tell me now that you know more than me here. I could give way to you with respect, of course, to some of the, what I consider to be the ad hominem statements that sound nice, but clearly would have to be further examined. But don't tell me that where I have been involved and that there is the saying that they don't want to participate in order, of course, to save Trinidad and Tobago and themselves. Even with the vaccine, there has been, of course, equitable in that case. Why? Because it is impossible for one side in the majority ethnic groups that are there, the Indians, Africans. It is impossible to say that they ran and get the vaccine when all of them were faced with the punishment, with the abuse, with the intimidation that they will lose their $3,000 pension if they did not take the vaccine. Don't tell me that. We were right by the paddock and we saw mainly Africans. And so let us be fair. Because let us put an end to this argument one time and to be as rational as possible. Let us go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome. Let's go. Let's go ahead.
Lennox.
Yes, I hear
Lennox.
you. Yes.
Good night again.
Yes, go ahead.
I listening to you. You asked me a question about pushback 1 and pushback 2.
Yes.
And I'm going to answer you. Right?
Yes.
What you're saying is true. They came out. I saw Africans and Indians. It was like half. And
That's right.
others,
That's right.
It had few. I can't lie. Everybody say that. Everybody see that. Well, let us make a stance, Lennox. I am asking them because it's this thing designed for. Everybody know that. You say it and we seeing it with this property tax because it's they who have. The first night I say that is they who have. We hardly have. Everybody know that. We black people know we hardly have. Rowley don't have to tell me that. So in as much as they have, right, they're supposed to make a stance. They have the power. We don't have that power. And the few of us, black people that have properties, that we have a lot to pay for, we are going to make a stance. I know that, sure, because if we could make stance all the time, in all little protest, it is a little protest, is we just be out there. I want you now to look at who went to drop letters. Who was there? Huh? Who was there when you all went to the embassy?
Half.
Right?
Half.
So let us make a stand for this property tax. We have to stand up, the both races, because it's we living inside of here mostly. That is what I asking for. Right.
Thank you. And that's all. You see, you have to be rational. And once you're rational, you see, we come to a consensus that everybody must now make a stand. And that we know that who is targeted, and therefore there's a greater preponderance for those who have been targeted, cannot wait on those who have not been targeted in order, of course, to come out and make that bulge that is required. So the argument finish is that both parties and there is no need for recriminations, because we accept that who is targeted, one, we accept that they have been making their contribution, we accept that because they have more to lose, that they ought to make much more. That I accept as well. But we must be able to articulate the issues, and we must be able to show the facts and the data and the empirical evidence in order to arrive at it. Because you see, that caller, when coming to prison, they can't talk about equal, you know. You could never talk about equal. It's mainly Africans occupying the jails. 99% of the people occupying the jails are Africans. But 99% of the people who are being the victim, or who, of course, are subjected, of course, to home invasion, etc., are not Africans. Our pleasure, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Mr. Lennox, calling from Shogunas.
Go ahead, Shogunas. Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
go ahead.
Yes, I am enjoying your program, and your callers also are making very good contributions. But I have a concern, all right?
Yes.
The United National Congress is 8 years now in opposition, aiming to be in government, okay?
Yes.
Here comes the dreaded property tax facing this whole nation.
Yes.
All right? And as you all are saying, it was geared to target the Indian population because they are the ones who own property. So
in the majority, right? In the majority, yes.
Hello?
In the majority,
yes. The majority, right, good. What in 8 years, Lennox, right? Why hasn't the United National Congress staged a protest in March or anything at all to show, to tell this government and this population, hey, we're not taking that? When would the opposition, the 19 of them, right, stand up, whether they have the permission from the opposition leader or not, to do something drastic to bring about change against this property tax? That is my question. Thanks.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Magnificent question, man. This is the kind of debate I love. I love these kinds of debate, man. I could stay here whole night until 12 o'clock, just before, of course, midnight on New Year's or Old Year's. I can't even remember now. Just to tell you how elated and, of course, delighted I am. Well, I want to tell the caller this. That both the UNC and the PNM knows who is targeted. They know. But you ask the question why the UNC didn't take action. It's obvious. It is so obvious. Like something like in blind man country when one-eyed man is king. You see, because of the racial, psychological divide, listen carefully, because of the racial, psychological divide, in other words, in the mind, it cannot be. The UNC can, of course, come out in front. If I am the UNC and I'm the leader, I'm not doing that. You see, because you have a government and you have a PNM that will pounce on that and make it look as though when the UNC comes into government, they will only deal with the Indians. Understand that? That is the point. So they know that it will be suicidal. And we the Africans will not benefit from the objectivity and the presence of an objective and, of course, people-centered UNC. And Kamala Prasad Bisesa understand that because Rowley and they will dig deep into, of course, their pernicious and wicked and diabolical propaganda machinery and bring. Listen. On the last occasion, 2025, the people and them showed that they are people oriented and that they are much more conducive to and susceptible to, of course, dealing with the people on a fair and, of course, palatable and altruistic basis. Yeah, their philanthropical disposition cannot be questioned. And they had an advertisement that had several food items, can and non-can, and among it in a typical grocery basket, a grocery tray, a grocery trolley, and they put in it a hand of bananas. And what Rowley did, understand, they can't afford to make that mistake. Otherwise, we, the Africans, will eat the bread, the devil, or put another way, the bread that the African party, the PNM need, because that is what they want in order, of course, to stay in government and to tell the African in particular, and maybe those small group of Indians, or should I know, I will say the 33% that, of course, is looking on and are part and parcel of the what is considered to be the seats that will eventually determine whether the government goes to the UNC or the PNM, are talking about, of course, those seats that are marginal. I had to be suicidal if I was Kamala and them to come out and blatantly say that your policy is targeting Indians. You make a joke. It's for me to say, it's for you to say, and for you to understand that that is in fact so, and therefore, because the PNM will, of course, go laughing all the way to the parliament with an electoral victory, even though it is emaciated, even though it is slim. Like is the case today, 22 seats, they don't care. They don't mind next round getting 21 seats. They don't mind that once they form the government. Understand that we saw it with Manning. Manning had 18 seats and he get on as though he was, of course, the beneficiary of a landslide. Understand? They don't care that. They don't care about that. So the UNC have a duty and responsibility to be careful to you and I, the Africans and the Indians, in order to make certain that the PNM do not unleash that scathing and reckless and brutal and inhumane and reckless and, of course, opportunistic propaganda that, of course, will generate an opportunity, because we cannot afford to have the UNC lose this election. That is why, my friend. But there are other factors which I will come to in a while. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Lennox.
Good night to you.
Good night to everybody. Lennox, yeah, good night, Lennox.
Yes, go ahead.
You feel Rowley, that nasty bald head, you feel he like any Indian? He ain't like nobody. He going like people who could lie like he and who could thief like he. It doesn't matter if he is an Indian or African. Once he could lie and thief, you and his friends. It had nothing with race with he. Lennox. Once Rowley pocket full and his family pocket full, whoever on his side will gather crumbs after. So the other join and lie with he to get a pocket full too. Okay, Lennox?
Yeah.
I don't think Rowley is a racist. He just
All right.
wicked.
Thank you. Well, I want to disagree with you categorically. I want to disagree once again categorically. You see, we have to define what is a racist. A racist, strictly speaking, is one who, of course, advocates for and sees his or her race as superior. That's the classic definition. As superior to any other. It doesn't matter whether it be Indian, it doesn't matter whether it's Caucasian, it doesn't matter whether it's Chinese, etc. That's the classic. But in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, what we have is a discriminatory agenda that we, of course, we consider, what we interpret it as race. In the context of Trinidad I'm talking about, the classic definition of a race is one who, of course, has his or her race that sees it as superior, better than any other. But in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, it is about discrimination. You understand? So they use it interchangeably and use the word race simply because it has a negative and pernicious and nasty and, of course, a very debilitating and psychologically, should I say, distressing connotation. Understand that? Distressing connotation. So to say Rowley is not a racist per se, you have to be able for a fellow like me to define what is a race. So I've done that. What I can tell you going forward is that Rowley is a pseudo-racist. A pseudo-racist. Meaning that he utilizes his own race to, of course, advance his political agenda. So it is only to that extent he is not a racist. I hope you understand. He uses his own race to climb on their backs, to become leader of the PNM, to become, of course, a prime minister, and to, of course, has his pernicious group of individuals to treat with us in the way that they have. And then when that is achieved, because he has, of course, 12 or so seats guaranteed along the east-west corridor, he then, of course, gives a sprinkling, but sprinkling that is strategic in terms of attempting, of course, to get over the 21 mark. 21 mark, eh? 21 mark. I come in there, you don't frighten, I come in. To get over 21 because there's 41 seats and all, so 21 mark. So what he does, you can see it palpably when it's election time. Election time, and when they are on campaign, you hardly see an Indian advocating for the PNM. They are not frontline speakers. If you get Imbert in front, it's a novelty, but it's all Africans. That is to make certain that they get the 12 seats along the east-west corridor, the little red that you see there, because, of course, let's face it, you cannot leave out the involvement and the contempt for the electorate and the electoral process by the very institution that was developed in order, of course, to have free and fair elections. I'm talking about the EBC that over the years have been engaged in gerrymandering. Gerrymandering. So, they then, of course, whites in government, they will now, of course, put Indian ministers in huge, some of which they can't even control. They know if a bullfoot are talking about the Ministry of Works, Sinanan, for example, a total dunderhead. They will put, of course, And the Minister of Agriculture right now, yeah, only for window dressing as far as politics is concerned, and the two, of course, tell the Indians, well, listen, we put major players in the context of government and of course ministries. Look them there, your people there. Don't tell me that we are only Africans. Understand what is happening here. It's the psychology that they have, and that formula has worked for them, and they keep beating it like a road march. Let's go straight to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Good night.
Yes, Lennox, may I give you
Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead.
With the explanation you give when I called just now, and I said that the why isn't the 19 members or some of the 19 members of the United National Congress not doing anything to blast this nation and let them know, hey, this government sorry that we're not taking a property tax. If you recall, all right, in 2010, a slogan, ask the tax.
Yeah.
You recall that, right?
I reach there yet, but go ahead. Go ahead. But I didn't reach there yet. I reach there yet. But go ahead. I reach there yet, but go ahead.
Then Ms. Passad Basis on national television tore up the property tax form. Yeah, I hope you're hearing me, okay?
Yes. Yeah, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, are you hearing me, Leonard?
Loud and clear, yes, go ahead.
Let me start back. In 2010. Okay, right. Then on national television, Ms. Passad Basis tore up the property tax form. Now, my question was, is not that it was being directed to the Indians? No, you all were saying that. The property tax is directed to everyone who owns a residential property. All right? So I disagree with the explanation. My question is, why hasn't the opposition so far, be it property tax or any other thing in this country, high fuel prices, high food prices, and whatnot, have done absolutely nothing in mobilizing the people for a protest or a march? That's my point. Why?
Come in there.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Oh God, how you go beat me up? So I know you hurry, but don't preempt me, man. I started there. And I still make the point that because the majority of the people owning property of a substantial nature to attract that tax are Indians. And therefore, there must be a consideration. I also say the same thing with respect to the mattress money and that of the $100 cotton to polymer. Otherwise, you will have to show me and disagree with me that your understanding is that Africans have, at minimum, an equal phobia for banks, and they have the money in their mattress. You have to show me that. And you also have to show me that a plethora of Africans own property to the point where they could collect some substantive taxes. So I need to start with that. But why have they not? Well, I disagree with you on that score as well. Because when, not only did the UNC, when they had the chance to, at government, not implement that tax, that in itself is a demonstration. Two, that the present administration, I'm talking about the opposition, also said that they will repeal the property tax once they get into office. And I'm coming to that because they need a further explanation. But three, very, very, very significant. Three, that the opposition went to court. What more pellucid position you want? They went to court, and the court agreed when they first set out on this property a tax that Rowley said it was a what? A horrendous tax, an awful tax, a dastard tax, a wicked tax. And what tax? I know that by now you should know because we play it every day. So I'm not going to regurgitate what Rowley actually said because it is most despicable that Rowley could now implement it. But you said the question is why the UNC? But I'm telling you that the UNC has made overtures with respect to and are still opposed to the tax. So much so that they said in the run-up to the 2020 elections and currently, what more do you want to see in terms of getting rid of it? If you have a government that said, and its conduct was that they will not close down Petrotrin, that they close down the oil refinery and mash up Petrotrin, and that of course they have engaged, of course, in the construction of a criminal act by way of entrapment. Alan Ramlogan and Ramdi, for example, they manufactured a criminal act for the DPP to act, the court to act, and it's not for the first time. Pandey, are you saying then that the UNC is cowed? Are you saying then that they ought to do? What more can they do? But except, of course, to get to the courts. And it's the only place that this government respects. Because Rowley believed that 22 seats will give him, of course, total and absolute control, dictatorship. In other words, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And power intoxicates and make men giddy, and the man is blasted drunk. And he's prepared, of course, to do anything. And Kamala Prasad, Bisesa, and whosoever, it is we. The question is we. What are we prepared to do? Kamala is one person, and all of the members of the UNC are one person. And if you put it together and you say 30 persons, well, there is 1.5 million, minus, of course, those who do not have property. In other words, let me say it here, in the context of protests, but of course you also have 400,000 persons besides them to, of course, treat with that matter. So it is not about them, it is about us. It is about us. That's what has to happen here. It's about us. And whether or not, as this discussion was genesis, as its beginning was, how much of us are prepared, of course, to resist and not pay? And you cannot know because it's a private matter. The documents are not published. So I say to you that the question is, to answer your question directly, they have done their part and continue to do their part. What we have to do is to get them into government. That's what we have to do in order to get rid of this albatross, this pernicious and evil, wicked, barbaric, nasty, hostile, wicked, diabolical, as well as, of course, a toxicity and the weaponizing of government against the people. As I said, I want to say that the majority that owns property are Indians. You may not be of the belief, because you see, that is what they want you to think, that they target all people with property. No. You see, I have had the experience. When the UN, the state of emergency in 2011, they were eclectic at the beginning. They said that they will target, of course, those so-called communities that the police designate as what? As crime hotspots. It was I who took the matter to the International Criminal Court and said, no, if you have a state of emergency to address the question of crime, you cannot, of course, discriminate against one community versus another and say that everybody in Laverton, for example, are criminals. That's what you're saying. So therefore you have to broaden it. But that's why it is broadened. But the target would have been who? Those along the blasted east-west corridor. You know that? You think it's people in Valset? You think it's people, of course, in other well-to-do communities? But you have to appear to be objective. We are being pragmatic and real. And the fact of the matter is that it is the Indian community that has the biggest and, of course, the most expansive and therefore will attract the most property tax for this government than the Africans who, of course, are not culturally and physically own large businesses and or buildings such as that of the Indians. Let's not waste time with that. So don't try to patronize me by telling me that it is all. That is a PNM talk. A PNM talk. It's the same talk when he said that although they orchestrated to, of course, to subvert the course of criminal justice, he said that the government don't know anything about that, and it didn't come to the government. But before the news broke by Kamala Prasad Bisesa of course, they having, of course, an arrangement with Al-Rari as Attorney General, and that indemnity agreement with Vincent Nelson. He was saying he don't know. He was saying, of course, that and he was giving an example, of course, that Malik case with Pamasa, and he was, of course, a state witness. We think that was all about. That was targeting who? It was, you believe that it was about the justice system taking its natural and of course, usual course? No. And just in case you don't believe, then of course I will have to refer to Bazio Pandey, the late Bazio Pandey, because it's the only how he got away with his first matter. Before Sherman McNichols, the magistrate, the sitting magistrate, threw the book at him, both fine as well as jail maximum. It was when it was found out by a whistleblower, clearly, who felt the stench of that nastiness of the PNM under Manning at the time. So PNM is PNM, it doesn't matter. And John Jeremy, who was the Attorney General at the time. And then it was discovered that Sherman McNichols, the magistrate in the matter, went to John Jeremy with a problem about a piece of land, and he wanted it rectified, and John Jeremy was asked, of course, to rectify it. But John Jeremy told him, well, listen, after you make a decision on Pandey, then, of course, we will look at it. And he did look at it. It was the appeal court that ended up saying, well, this thing is politically motivated. Pandey go free. Otherwise, Pandey would have been making his last days in jail. Understand that? Tell me about what they say, that what? That the property tax is for those who are telling you that it has. That's my argument. And if you don't want, of course, to be practical and understand the vipers that we're dealing with, then I could go further. Okasi Paul, for the sake of course, politics and, of course, political ascendancy and political dominance. They institute a state of emergency around her house because she was not acting in the dictates of the PNM, the Manning administration, then, and they instituted a state of emergency around her house so that their minion, of course, their miscreant, their malleable operative could take the chair and give Manning what he wants. They're telling me about there is sufficient evidence to demonstrate that. You see, you have to, of course, to satisfy the standard, and whether or not we are making inference or we are making, of course, a circumstantial case, because we don't have the practical evidence. Nothing makes us lose our right to apply our, otherwise we will be accused as Rowley and his government that common sense is not as common as one would like. Let us not waste time. Act. And it is up to us now, because you have a marauding bunch of miscreants who are prepared to use the law in order, of course, to have their pernicious ways. Let's go straight to the line. Pleasant good night. We'll take this final call. It is 8 minutes past 11 already. Pleasant good night. Welcome.
Lennox.
Hey.
Lennox, good night. Actually, we having a marathon again tonight. And I'm afraid, you know.
They got me back, man.
Lennox,
yes.
I'm fine. Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Lennox, you must remind people that I am your outside correspondent.
Yes, you are.
I'm just the recaller. Put back my title.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I'm just an ordinary caller that takes up time.
That's right. Yes. I want to make sure that is known.
That's all
I am going to.
I know you have a lot to say.
I am going to repeat that. Yes.
Yeah. I find that was very unfortunate what that gentleman said, that the UNC is doing anything about the property tax, the raising gas prices, and all these kind of things. No. It's because of Mrs. Pasabi's successor, right? That we didn't pay for 10 years. He's going in like, well, we pay, we have to pay now. In much around, first stop. Hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Come a little closer to the phone.
Hello? Yes.
Go ahead, yes, loud and clear.
And in much around, a comma, a full stop, here and there, and then he took 20 threats after everybody had filled it out, right? Not so, Lennox?
Yes, that's right.
And they went back again. There was something again they could do. Now, my question is, another thing, did Mrs. Pasabi Sasa them take the local government election to court, to the Privy Council? Because of the UNC, we were able to vote in on the 14th of August last year.
That's right.
So I find it was unfortunate to say, yes, that the UNC is not doing anything. Lennox, who is the gas prices affecting? Not we as citizens.
That's right.
Why do we have to wait for the opposition to do something for us? Food prices, gas prices, the property tax, everything is affecting us. We as citizens, are we still calling on the opposition to do something? Don't we have enough strength to come out there and do anything? And you know that's a fact.
Yes.
I am in every protest of having. I got away by the lesson the skill of my teeth with the tail.
yeah, I got it in my nostrils, yes. I got it in my lungs.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And it's because of my key identity. To the whole us. Right? So when people want to come and say, I am not out, I'm here for everyone. We will not wait for the opposition to come out. When Victor Roberts has everything, I am there. We are going out. Why do we as citizens, all in Sri Lanka about, did they wait for the opposition to do something? No. The people came out in their thousands. Until we start standing ourselves, nothing is going to happen. Because we are too complacent. We are too complacent. Anyway, Lennox, have a good night. Take care. Glad you went a little bit later tonight.
Yes.
Take care.
Yes, of course, people, let me just reiterate and confirm simultaneously that is, of course, our external correspondent, of course, Miss Santa Cruz, yes, and she can She has the authority, just as me, to intervene, to interrupt, and of course to express a view. Some of it you cannot question the veracity of the examples that I would have given, and therefore you have to come good with yours in order, of course, to neutralize. Save, of course, you may be painted in a different light if, of course, you attempt to challenge, and your challenge proved to be, of course, an exercise in futility. Let me just close with this so that people will understand that and it has to do with property tax, because I want to make certain that, of course, and I love, of course, the direction in which the discussion has gone. We have, of course, exhausted the whole question of the immigrants, and we have, of course, proven that it is not what some people may think. But let's go straight, of course, to this final call. Final call. A pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night.
Sorry, Mr. Lennox. Good night.
Good night.
Mr. Lennox.
Yes.
And one thing you forget, because you see, when they call out everybody and they want to come out, I will refer to the sugar workers and the farmers workers and them who was misled by the fraction and the leader. Where a man before, he had a former party and he joined up with the unit with the farmers workers and them. And then two lawsuits to him. He go on now and he come back and talk show host. But you see, the wrong concept in life, right? And people mislead them. That is why we can't get nowhere today. And Andy talked about it on the program. And the thing about it is that the fragmentation among the supporters and the well-being of the people. Just imagine, their own self don't know that they're hungry. They themselves don't know that crime is out of hand, affecting everybody. And the common sense will show you because of the witchcraft and the obvious. Since the Herculean time put something out of the Red House to have everybody to protest, right? That is why they're docile. And more we talk, at least we have to say, God, break the hex. And I hope that anybody, all who talking and want to say no to property tax, so Monday morning, everybody come down to South Academy and they go to pay their tribute. Then we see how much will stand up in solidarity with a man who fights for everybody. Have a nice night.
Yes, indeed. Of course, just to say that, of course, that was tied up yesterday at the rotunda of the Red House. I'm talking about, of course, lying in state the body of Basil Pandey. Quite a lot. I went there, and of course, I took some video notes as to what was going on. Quite a long line. And of course, on Monday, he will be, of course, aligning in state at the South Academy for the Performing Arts. And then, of course, he will then be interned, of course, under Hindu rights. That being as it may, of course, let's just go and get a little snippet as to what the UNC has done with respect, of course, to property tax. Yes, indeed. We want to show you, of course, in a final.
The dreaded property tax. Anybody telling the population that this PNM coming into office will bring back that tax is the highest level of dishonesty. And telling the population that this PNM coming into office will bring back that tax is the highest level of dishonesty.
The appeal court has ruled government's 2017 property tax data collection drive was illegal. The drive briefly made it mandatory for citizens to submit personal details for the implementation of property tax.
That is what the UNC did. Should have gotten long before. Whilst, of course, Rowley was telling us in 2015 is the dreaded property tax. Look for the word dreaded and you will understand. Let's go back there to make sure.
Anybody telling the population that this PNM coming into office will bring back that tax is the highest level of dishonesty. And telling the population that this PNM coming into office will bring back that tax is the highest level of dishonesty.
The appeal court has ruled government's 2017 property tax data collection drive was illegal. The drive briefly made it mandatory for citizens to submit personal details for the implementation of property tax. A 3-judge panel said government via the Commission of Valuations had no lawful authority to demand property owners do so. Justices Peter Rajkumar, Charmaine Pemberton and Vashish Kokram unanimously ruled acted unconstitutionally by requiring Maharaj and other citizens submit a valuation return form with the necessary information on or before June 10, 2017.
The dreaded property tax.
So since 2017, the UNC has been working. So if you don't know, all the world now knows. And therefore, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's much more. But people, of course, as every good thing and bad thing, it comes to an end. And of course, the PNM will come to an end as the evil that it is in 2025 maximum. And before, preferably. It is, of course, is well known. It's not just a cliche. It is axiomatic. It's axiomatic that evil cannot prevail over good. And Rowley and Day has demonstrated a toxicity, a swirl or whirlpool of toxicity unprecedented. And it is just a matter of time. See you tomorrow morning when Dr. Khalid and myself will be here. Corridor transformation from 8 to 10 in the morning. Yes, 8 to 10. Yeah, we're not sleeping. It's a long, hot 12 months into 2025. He and I will be here, Dr. Khalid and myself, and of course tomorrow night we will get back to you, of course, on these and other issues that are dear to you and with which you are and must be totally and absolutely concerned. Yes, indeed.
For them out, they go Martin West. For them out, they go Martin East. For them out, San Fernando West. St. Anne's West, Forest Bay North. For them out, for them out, for them out, for them out, for them out.
Them is the real problem. They're doing what they want, so let me vote of them. We not voting, them for King's PNM. We not voting, them for King's PNM. King Rowley, King Imbert, King Forrest, King Stuart, living high, dictatorship style, putting tears in the poor people's eyes. We not voting, them for King's PNM. We not voting, them for King's PNM.
For them out, they go Martin West. For them out, they go Martin East. For them out, San Fernando West. St. Anne's West, Forest Bay North. For them out, for them out, for them out, for them out, for them out.
Rowley acting like a dictator. He and Maduro moving together. They bring down Delcy Rodriguez and be citizens, oh they crying tears. They want the US to sanction we, cause more poverty. They're doing what they want, so let me vote out them. We not voting, them for King's PNM. We not voting, them for King's PNM. King Rowley, King Imbert, King Forrest, King Stuart, living high, dictatorship style.
Rowley must go. Rowley must go.
This is massive go side. Wicked and wild. Why do? What they do? Why do? What they do? Rowley, you fuck up when they go. You fuck it up. 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 Rowley, you fuck up when they go. You fuck it up. 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 From Citrus to Mayaro, you fuck up Trinbago. From Sando to Tobago, you fuck up Trinbago. Rowley, they go, you fuck it up, 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 you fuck it up. Rowley, you fuck up, they go, you fuck it up, 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 you fuck it up. Rowley must go, Rowley must go, Rowley must go, yes, Rowley must go, Rowley, yes, Rowley must go, Rowley must go, yes, Rowley must go. That's the macaram, the talking all about.